2 cups in the front, 2 loops in the back. How do they do it?
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the innovations of women who didn't get the recognition they deserved, at least at first.
And as we try to encourage girls and boys to go into STEM, shouldn't we be telling them that the pioneers of STEM look like them?
Number 10, Windshield Wipers, Mary Anderson. Not only did she not get credit for her invention, she didn't make a dime off of it. While touring New York City during wintry weather, Anderson noticed that her driver had to stop and clean off the windshield with his hands. This gave her the idea for her window cleaning device, an arm with a rubber blade that basically works like a modern wiper. She patented it in 1903 but never found a buyer, and some people believe it's because no one took her seriously. Instead, a company called Trico bought a wiper design patented by John Jepson in 1916 and went on to become one of the largest wiper manufacturers in the world.
Well, a woman also invented the windshield wiper.
Which goes great with another male invention, the car.
Number 9, Monopoly, Lizzie McGee. An outspoken feminist and progressive, McGee was ahead of her time. She invented the landlord's game as a tool to teach people about the dangers of concentrating wealth in a few hands, and got a patent for it in 1904.
She wanted a game that would teach people how awful it was to have a money-grubbing landlord who gouged you on your rents.
In the 30s, unemployed salesman Charles Darrow learned about the game from friends, and began selling his own copies under the title Monopoly. He sold his design to Parker Brothers in 1935, claiming it was his own invention. McGee was furious at Darrow's theft. She went to the newspapers with her story, and Parker Brothers eventually bought her patent rights for a mere $500. Darrow, on the other hand, went on to make millions in royalties. We don't blame McGee for being angry.
Ironically, what happened was owning groups of land was glorified.
They discovered the joy of bankrupting their family and friends rather than learning about financial justice.
Number 8, Leprosy Treatment, Alice Ball. Both the first woman and the first Black American to earn a master's at the University of Hawaii, Ball became a chemistry lecturer in 1915. At the time, people with leprosy were doomed to a slow and painful death.
There was no cure for leprosy. It was a criminal offense to have leprosy, and you were incarcerated.
The best treatment available was an oil made from a tree found in India, but it didn't actually work very well. By modifying the compounds in the oil, Ball developed an injectable version that revolutionized leprosy treatment. However, she died suddenly at the age of 24 before she could publish her method.
What Alice did is to discover a way to inject an oil from a tree called the chalmuga tree, and to find a way to make it water-soluble so it could be injected into the bloodstream.
Her former advisor later published the work without giving her credit, and even named the technique after himself. Although a colleague eventually tried to correct the record, Ball's contribution went mostly unrecognized for decades. Number 7, mass-produced paper bags, Margaret E. Knight. Probably use her invention at least once a week. Back in the late 1800s, mass-produced bags were flimsy and couldn't stand upright. Knight, who had started inventing things as a child, created a machine that produced sturdy, flat-bottomed bags like those we use today. Machinist Charles Annan saw her design and made the mistake of stealing it and filing for a patent himself. When Knight sued him, Annan tried to argue that Knight couldn't have invented the machine because, quote, she could not possibly understand the mechanical complexities. Knight then presented the court with pages of detailed blueprints, journals, and witnesses who confirmed she had been working on the machine for years. The court ruled in her favor, and she got her patent.
And Margaret later went on to invent a paper bag maker, which had a flat bottom and is still used today in our little brown bags that we might get at the pharmacy.
Number 6, the modern bra, Caress Crosby. This wardrobe staple has existed in some form for thousands of years.
Cross your heart crosses over, lifts and separates to help you cross over to a better figure. Wow!
But corsets were basically the only option in the early 20th century. When Crosby was only 19, she became frustrated with her bulky corset while dressing for a ball. Using 2 handkerchiefs and a ribbon, she sewed a new garment that was light and comfortable. It immediately became a hit among her friends. Crosby patented her design in 1914 and later founded the fashion form brassiere company. However, her new husband Harry soon talked her out of pursuing her own business, and she sold her patent to the Warner Brothers corset company for just $1,500. Warner's sales skyrocketed, and for years, few people associated Crosby's name with the invention of the bra.
You have a remarkable passion for brassieres.
They're more than just underwear to me, Mr. Farkas.
Number 5. The electric computer, the ENIAC programmers. During World War II, the American Army had to calculate thousands of missile trajectories using differential equations that took hours to work by hand. These women programmed the Electronic Numerical Integrator and Computer, or ENIAC, to do the math in just seconds.
The military hired, we think, between 80 and 100 women to hand calculate these ballistics trajectories, and they called them computers. A computer was a person before it was a machine.
They worked completely from scratch, with no instructions, no pre-existing programming languages, no precedent to help them. But their contributions were ignored for decades.
Well, they went out for dinner with all the people, but guess what? Not the ENIAC women. Betty and I weren't invited.
They weren't identified in publicity photos and weren't even invited to the 50th anniversary celebration of the ENIAC in the 90s. It wasn't until historian Kathy Kleiman stumbled onto their story that they started to get the recognition they deserved.
There were not only brilliant white engineers, there were African-American engineers, Chinese engineers, and of course, lots of women.
Remember their names: Kathleen Antonelli, Jean Bartek, Betty Holburton, Marlon Meltzer, Frances Spence, and Ruth Teitelbaum. Number 4. The Moonlanding Path, Katherine Johnson. Her contributions to NASA and the field of space travel are almost immeasurable. She not only plotted the trajectory for the moon landing, she also calculated Alan Shepard's first spaceflight, a safe return path for the failed Apollo 13 mission, and more.
I would like to attend today's briefing.
Why is that?
Well, sir, the data changes so fast. The capsule changes, the weight and the landing zones are all changing.
Johnson talked her way into meetings and onto projects that had previously included only men. But it was standard practice at NASA, and pretty much everywhere else, not to formally recognize the women computers who did most of the math. Instead, the names of male engineers went onto the reports and into the history books. It's partly thanks to the 2016 book and movie Hidden Figures that the work of Johnson and others like her is finally being recognized.
I feel like I'm the best person to present my
You're not gonna
calculations.
let this go, are you?
No, I am not.
And she is a woman. There is no protocol for a woman
Okay,
attending
I
these
get
meetings.
that part, Paul.
Number 3. The computer algorithm, Ada Lovelace. The daughter of a celebrated poet and a gifted intellectual, it's no surprise that Lovelace had a brilliant mind. She loved mathematics and jumped at the chance to work with Charles Babbage on his analytical engine, the precursor to the modern computer. During their collaboration, she created a program to calculate Bernoulli numbers, a sequence well known in the field of analysis. That program is widely considered to be the first computer algorithm.
A temple map showing every significant person in the development of computers through history, starting with you, Ada.
Throughout the 1900s, scholars argued that Lovelace wasn't sharp enough to write such a program, and that it must have actually been Babbage's work. More recent research has shown that not only did Lovelace write the program, she understood the computer's potential to do much more than math, even better than Babbage himself. Number 2. The Wu experiment, Jiansheng Wu. While working on the Manhattan Project, she developed the process that made it possible to produce enough uranium to build a bomb. But it was her 1956 experiment that earned Wu a place on our list. At the time, the law of conservation of parity was accepted as fact. However, physicists Zhang Dao Li and Chen-Ning Yang theorized that it might not apply in all cases. They asked Wu to test their hypothesis, and she designed a complex experiment that involved cooling radioactive isotopes to near absolute zero. She proved them right, simultaneously paving the way for other major breakthroughs. Yang and Li got a Nobel Prize, and Wu got nothing. But she would go on to earn many other honors throughout her illustrious career. Before we unveil our top pick, here are some honorable mentions. Disposable diapers, Marion Donovan. Male execs laughed at her in the 50s, but Pampers started selling a similar design in 1961.
Outside, Pampers waterproof sheet replaces plastic pads, so everyone stays drier.
Computer programming language, Grace Hopper. Men kept telling her that her ideas weren't possible, and she kept proving them wrong. Photography book, Anna Atkins. Henry Talbot usually gets the credit, but she finished her book 8 months earlier than he did. Hair straightening comb, Ada Harris. This inventor and civil rights leader was almost forgotten by history. The field of gynecology, Trota of Salerno. For centuries, people assumed her books on women's health were written by a man.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Wireless communication, Hedy Lamarr. If you're watching this on Wi-Fi, you have this Hollywood star partially to thank for it.
That was a tip. My tip, and I'm going to keep it.
You can't do that. He put it there. I saw him.
All right, you heard what the lady said.
During World War II, she came up with the concept of frequency hopping, bouncing a signal across radio frequencies to prevent an enemy from jamming it. Composer George Antheil developed a way to use it in radio transmitters, and together, they presented their idea to the Navy. At the time, the Navy thought it was impractical, but later used it successfully in the 50s and 60s. Her idea eventually evolved into many different technologies, including the ones that make cell phones, Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth possible. Despite having a patent, Lamarr and Antheil were never compensated for their invention, and Lamarr's contribution was mostly ignored until the 1990s. Which inventor inspires you the most? Be sure to let us know in the comments below.
What is a computer? Oh, forget you heard that word. Otherwise, I've just disrupted the whole of history again.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.